The guard demanded identification. My father passed his retired badge. "She's with me," he said. "Just a civilian." I handed the guard a card stamped with the presidential seal. The scanner lit up. "Yankee White, Priority 1. The guard lifted the red phone. "Clear the lane. VIP passage." That's when my dad turned and stared at me in absolute shock. You know that feeling? The one where your entire life has been building to a moment, and someone you love, someone who should know you best, completely dismisses it. Well, imagine that, but then, in a blink, the world, and that person is forced to see the undeniable truth of who you are, in the most dramatic, jaw-dropping way possible. That's what happened to me. I'm Major Sonia Richard, 33 years old, and for years I lived a double life. To my dad, I was just his kid working on base. But the truth? I held a clearance so high, most people don't even know it exists. I supported him, I stood by him, I let him believe his version of my story. Until the day he called me just a civilian at a federal checkpoint. Right before the guards scanned my badge, and everything irrevocably changed. What unfolded next, you just won't see coming. The guard at the gate, young and sharp, asked for our IDs. My dad, ever the proud veteran, handed over his retired card with a polite smile. "She's with me," he said, gesturing to me. "Just a civilian." My stomach dropped. I swallowed the usual hurt, reached into my pocket, and handed over my own identification. Not just any card. The card. The one with the presidential seal, issued for my top-secret assignment. The scanner paused. A beat of silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then it shrieked. A bold, angry red flashed across the screen. "Yankee White, Priority 1. The guard stiffened, his eyes widening almost imperceptibly. He snatched up the red phone, the direct line, and with an almost robotic precision, he opened the VIP lane. My dad, standing next to me, visibly recoiled, confusion clouding his face. "What's going on?" he mumbled. The guard, now practically at attention, handed my card back with both hands, palms open, a gesture of profound respect. "Major, ma'am," he said, his voice clipped and formal. "Your clearance is active. Let me escort you personally." My dad just stared, his jaw hung open, and I walked through that lane. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To truly understand that moment, we need to rewind. The signs, they were always there. Little things easy to ignore if you weren't looking. But I was looking. I'd been looking for years. My dad, Senior Master Sergeant Richard, Air Force, retired after 22 years. Hey, that's not nothing. It's a rank that demands dedication, skill, and time. He earned it, and he deserved every ounce of pride he felt for it. He served well, he led airmen, he knew the system inside and out. Growing up, I could recite his ribbons before I knew my multiplication tables. I knew the difference between a meritorious service medal and a commendation medal from across the room, because he'd patiently explained each one. He loved the Air Force, and through him I loved it too. So, when I told him I wanted to commission, he supported me. He helped with my OTS application, drove me to medical appointments. He was there when I raised my right hand and swore the oath for the first time. But something shifted that day. I remember his hug after the ceremony, and his joke. "Well, now you outrank me." Technically. We laughed, but behind it, an unspoken thing lingered, a shadow neither of us acknowledged. And over time, that shadow grew. I started as a second lieutenant, 01 at 23. Fresh, eager, utterly overwhelmed. I called him constantly in those first months, desperate for his advice. He'd been enlisted, sure, but he knew the culture, the unwritten rules, how rank and responsibility intertwined. But when I asked about navigating my first assignment, he'd deflect. "You're an officer now," he'd say. "You've got your own lane." At first, I thought he was encouraging independence, trusting my training. But it kept happening. Again. And again. When I made first lieutenant at 25, I called to tell him. He congratulated me, but the conversation was brief. He didn't ask about my new duties, my next station. He changed the subject to his garden, his VA appointments, the weather. By the time I pinned on captain at 28, I'd stopped expecting him to ask. And when I was selected for major at 30, the rank where you start carrying real weight, real responsibility, he just said, "That's great, honey. Your mom would be proud." My mom passed when I was 19 before I joined. Bringing her up felt like a way to fill space, to acknowledge something without actually engaging. I didn't push. I told myself it wasn't personal. Maybe he was just getting older. Maybe he'd said everything he needed about the military during his own career. Maybe he just didn't want to relive it through mine. But then came the little moments, the comments, the assumptions. One Thanksgiving, during a holiday visit, my aunt asked what I'd been working on. Before I could even open my mouth, my dad jumped in, a grin on his face. "Oh, she pushes papers," he chuckled. "Probably keeps the coffee warm for the real officers." Everyone laughed. I smiled, a tight, fixed thing. I didn't correct him. The truth was, I just rotated off a deployment to an undisclosed location, managing logistics for high-level operations. I'd spent 6 months coordinating movements I couldn't discuss, solving problems most people would never even know existed. But I didn't say any of that. I just let the joke land. Another time, we went to lunch near base, a small diner that offered a military discount. My dad, always proud, handed over his retired ID card. The cashier rang it up, then looked at me. "Are you military too?" Before I could answer, my dad waved her off. "Nah, she's just a civilian today. Didn't bring her uniform." My blood ran cold. I was wearing my uniform, blues with my gold oak leaves, major, clearly visible on my shoulders. The cashier looked confused but didn't press. I paid full price. Afterward, in the car, I said, "Dad, I was in uniform." He just shrugged. "I know, but you don't need to make a thing of it every time." I didn't respond. I just stared out the window, trying to understand what he meant. Did he think I was showing off? That wearing my rank was some kind of performance? Or was it something else? Something deeper? I started noticing. He never truly asked what I did. Not once, not in any real way. When I mentioned a new assignment, he'd nod and say, "Sounds important." When I referenced a challenge, "You'll figure it out." When I tried to share a success, an accolade, a milestone, "That's great," he'd say, and move on. It wasn't hostility. It was absence. A quiet, steady refusal to engage with the reality of who I'd become. And the worst part? He kept introducing me the same way. "This is my daughter. She works on base. She's in the Air Force." Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. I was a major. I held a clearance most people didn't know existed. I'd been entrusted with responsibilities that required years of vetting, evaluation, and absolute trust. I'd earned my position through performance, not proximity. But to him, I was still figuring things out. He'd say it to relatives, to his friends, to strangers at the VA. "She's young, still learning the ropes." I was 33. I'd been in the service for more than a decade. The tension wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was steady, cumulative, a slow erosion of recognition. And then, he asked me to take him onto a restricted base. "There's an event," he said. "Retirement ceremony for an old buddy of mine. I'd like to be there." "Sure," I said. "I can get you on." He smiled. "Good. They'll wave us through. I've still got my credentials." I didn't correct him. I didn't explain how it actually worked. I just said I'd meet him at the gate at 1,400 hours. The day arrived. We drove separately. I arrived first, parked, and waited by the visitor control center. He pulled up a few minutes later, confident, relaxed. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." We walked toward the entry checkpoint together. The security barrier was unmistakable. Armed personnel, vehicle inspection lanes, a strict protocol. Staff Sergeant Elias Ward, young, professional, sharp, stepped forward as we approached. My dad, with his usual pride, stepped ahead. "She's with me," he said, gesturing to me. "Just a civilian." I said nothing. I reached into my pocket and handed Staff Sergeant Ward my identification card. The one with the presidential seal. Ward took the card, glanced at it, then ran it through the scanner. For a moment it was still routine. Then the scanner beeped. The screen flashed red. Yankee White Priority 1. Ward's eyes widened, just slightly enough that I noticed. He straightened his posture, shifted his weight, and picked up the red phone mounted on the security podium. He didn't look at my dad. He looked directly at me. He opened the VIP lane. A brief pause on the other end of the phone. Then I heard the mechanical grind of the reinforced barrier sliding open. The lane reserved for flag officers, senior officials, personnel with executive-level clearances. My dad turned to me, confusion etched deep on his face. "What's going on?" Staff Sergeant Ward handed my card back with both hands, palms open, the way you handle something valuable, something that commands respect. "Major, ma'am," he said, his voice steady but formal. Your clearance is active. I'll need to escort you through personally. My dad's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I took my card, slipped it back into my pocket, and met Ward's eyes. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. He gestured toward the very important person lane. Right this way, ma'am. I walked forward. My dad followed, silent, stiff. I could feel the weight of his stare on the back of my neck, but I didn't turn around. As we passed the line of waiting vehicles, civilians, contractors, lower clearance personnel, I heard someone mutter, "Who is that?" Ward didn't answer them. He stayed a respectful 2 steps behind me, professional, alert. We reached the inner checkpoint. Another guard snapped to attention as I approached. Major, he said crisply. I nodded. He waved us through without hesitation. Only then did my dad speak. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was low. Not angry, not hurt. Something in between. I kept walking. A steady pace, eyes forward. You never asked. The silence that followed was heavier than anything he could have said. We reached the parking area near the event venue. I stopped, turned to face him. His expression was unreadable. Shock maybe, confusion, and something else he wasn't ready to name. I don't understand, he said finally. I know. You said you worked on base. You never said. I told you I was assigned to executive support operations, I said calmly. I told you I'd been vetted for high-level clearance. I told you I was working directly with senior leadership. He blinked. You said you were doing administrative work. I said I coordinated logistics for senior command staff. That's not the same thing. He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. He looked down at his retired ID card, still clutched in his hand. A senior master sergeant, a rank he'd worked 2 decades to earn. And I was 04 major with a clearance that put me in rooms he'd never see. I thought. He trailed off. You thought what? I asked, not unkindly, just directly. He didn't answer. I softened my tone, just slightly. Dad, I've been in the service for 12 years. I've held 4 different ranks. I've deployed 3 times. I've briefed colonels and generals. I've managed classified operations you'll never hear about. And in all that time, you never once asked me what I actually do. You couldn't talk about it, he said, defensive now. You always said it was classified. Some of it was. Some of it wasn't. But you stopped asking either way. His jaw tightened. I didn't want to pry. It's not prying to show interest in your daughter's career. He looked away, toward the flight line in the distance. Jets taxiing. The steady hum of engines. The life he used to know. I was proud of what I did, he said quietly. 22 years. I earned my stripes. I led good airmen. I did my job right. I know you did. And then you commissioned. And suddenly you were above me overnight. I let that sit for a moment. It wasn't overnight. It took 4 years of training and education before I even put on the uniform. You know what I mean. I did. I knew exactly what he meant. He'd spent 2 decades climbing the enlisted ranks. Every promotion hard-earned. Every evaluation scrutinized. Every leadership role a test of endurance and skill. And I'd walked into the officer corps at 23 with a college degree and a commission. It wasn't the same path. It wasn't the same struggle. But it also wasn't less than. Dad, I said carefully, I respect everything you did. I always have. But my career isn't a reflection on yours. It's separate. It's mine. I never said it wasn't. You didn't have to. He flinched, just barely. I continued. You introduced me as just a civilian. You joked that I pushed papers. You told people I was still figuring things out. You acted like my rank didn't exist. I didn't mean. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but you did. The words landed hard. I could see it in his face. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. Not as his daughter. Not as the kid who used to memorize his ribbons. But as Major Sonia Richard, 04 Yankee White clearance, an officer in the United States Air Force. I'm sorry, he said. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was something. We should get to the ceremony, I said. He nodded. We walked together in silence. The event was formal. Full dress uniforms, speeches, a color guard. I found seats near the back. My dad sat beside me, stiff, uncomfortable. Halfway through, a lieutenant colonel approached. Mara Kim, my direct supervisor. Calm, precise, the kind of officer who commanded respect without raising her voice. Major Richard, she said, nodding to me. Then she glanced at my dad. Is this your father? Yes, ma'am. This is Thomas Richard, retired senior master sergeant. An honor, senior, she said, extending her hand. He shook it, clearly caught off guard. Thank you, ma'am. She turned back to me. I wanted to let you know Colonel Mercer asked for you specifically on the next briefing rotation. He's impressed with your work. Thank you, ma'am. I'll be ready. I know you will. She nodded once more to my dad, then walked away. My dad stared after her. Who was that? My supervisor, Lieutenant Colonel Kim. She reports to you? No, I report to her. He processed that. And this Colonel Mercer? Group Commander 06. His face went pale. You brief colonels? Sometimes generals. He didn't respond. He just sat there, absorbing it, recalibrating. The ceremony ended. People filtered out. Dad stood slowly, still dazed. As we walked back to the parking lot, he said, I didn't know. I know. I should have asked. Yes. He stopped walking, turned to face me. I'm proud of you. I wanted to believe him, but the words felt late. Reactionary. Thank you, I said. We reached his car. He unlocked it, but didn't get in. He stood there, keys in hand, looking at me like he was seeing me for the very first time. Sonia, he hesitated. Can we start over? I considered that. Start over like none of it happened? Like years of dismissal could be erased with good intentions? No, I said honestly. But we can start from here. He nodded slowly. Okay. I have to get back to work. Okay. I turned to leave, then stopped. Dad. Yeah. Next time you introduce me, use my rank. He swallowed hard. I will. I walked away. I didn't look back. I grew up watching my father wear his uniform like armor. Pressed, precise, proud. Senior Master Sergeant, E8. That wasn't just a rank to him. It was an identity, a culmination of discipline, sacrifice, and time. He'd enlisted young, 18, right out of high school. No college, no backup plan, just a belief that the Air Force would give him structure, purpose, a future. And it did. He worked flight line maintenance for years. Long shifts, hard labor, jet fuel under his fingernails, grease stains that never quite came out. He advanced slowly. E1 to E2 to E3. Each promotion a validation, proof that hard work mattered. By the time I was born, he was already an E6, a respected, reliable NCO. I remember him coming home late, exhausted, but always stopping to check my homework, always asking about my day. My mom used to joke he ran our household like a flight line. Everything scheduled, maintained, accounted for. She wasn't wrong. He taught me discipline before I knew the word. Details matter, he'd say. In the Air Force, in life, details matter. I believed him. When I was 14, he pinned on E8. It was a big deal. The ceremony, cake, handshakes. I watched him accept the new rank with quiet pride. No showboating, just a firm handshake and a thank you. Afterward, he took me aside. You see that? He said, pointing to the new stripes. That's 20 years of work. Every day, every decision, every time I chose to do the right thing. Even when it was hard. I see it, I said. Good. Remember it. I did. My mom passed a year later. Cancer. Fast and brutal. Dad didn't fall apart. He couldn't. He had a job, a mission, me. So he kept going. He showed up. He performed. He led. But something in him hardened, like he'd sealed off the part that could afford to feel too much. When I told him I wanted to join the Air Force, he didn't try to talk me out of it. He just asked, enlisted or officer? Officer, I said. I want a commission. He nodded slowly. Then you'll need a degree first. I know. He helped me apply to colleges, navigate ROTC scholarships, drove me to campus visits. But there was a distance now, a formality. I think part of him wanted me to enlist, to follow his path, to understand the service the way he understood it. From the ground up, step by step, stripe by stripe. But I didn't. I went to college. I studied management. I joined ROTC. And when I commissioned at 23, I became a second lieutenant 01. Technically, I outranked him. He congratulated me. He shook my hand. He took pictures. But something shifted that day. Something neither of us named. Over the next few years, I climbed steadily. 01 to 02 to 03, captain by 28. Each promotion felt hard-earned. I wasn't coasting. I worked long hours, took on difficult assignments, deployed to places I couldn't name. But my dad stopped asking about my career. At first, I thought it was because of classification. I'd been assigned to operations I couldn't discuss in detail. I assumed he respected that boundary. But even when I tried to share the unclassified parts, the leadership challenges, the lessons learned, the small victories, he'd deflect. "Sounds like you're doing fine," he'd say. "You've got your own path now. I'm sure you'll figure it out." It was supportive in a surface-level way, but it wasn't engaged. It wasn't interested. I started calling him less. Not out of anger, just exhaustion. It was tiring to offer pieces of my life and have them politely declined. By the time I made major at 33, I'd stopped expecting him to ask. I called to tell him anyway. Out of duty. Out of habit. "That's great, Sonia," he said. "Your mom would be proud." I thanked him. We talked about his garden. The conversation lasted 7 minutes. I hung up and sat in my empty base housing unit, staring at the gold oak leaves I just pinned on my shoulders. I thought about the years it had taken to get here. The evaluations, the deployments, the late nights and early mornings, the decisions that kept me up, the airmen I'd led, the operations I'd coordinated, the trust I'd earned. And I thought about my dad, about the way he used to explain his ribbons to me, about the pride in his voice when he talked about his work. I wanted that. Not for validation, just for connection. But somewhere along the way, he'd stopped seeing me as a service member. He saw me as his daughter. Still young. Still figuring things out. Even though I was 33. Even though I'd been serving for over a decade. Even though I held a rank he'd never reached. I think that was the part he couldn't reconcile. Not that I'd surpassed him, but that I'd done it differently. I didn't earn it the way he did. I didn't climb from E1 to E8 over 2 decades. I didn't work flight line maintenance or pull night shifts in the motor pool. I went to college. I commissioned. I entered as an officer. And to him, that wasn't the same. It wasn't less than, but it wasn't the same. I understood that. I really did. But understanding didn't make it hurt less. I wanted him to see me not as a shortcut, not as someone who skipped the hard parts, but as someone who chose a different path and walked it well. I wanted him to ask, "What does a major do?" I wanted him to say, "Tell me about your assignment." I wanted him to look at my ribbons the way I used to look at his. But he didn't. And eventually, I stopped waiting for him to. I built my career. I earned my clearances. I took on more responsibility. I worked directly with senior command staff. I coordinated executive-level operations. I held briefings that shaped decisions I'd never see the outcomes of. And I did it all without his acknowledgement. Not because I didn't want it, but because I couldn't keep pausing my life waiting for him to catch up. So when he asked me to get him onto that restricted base, I said yes. Not because I wanted to prove something, but because maybe, just maybe, if he saw it for himself, he'd finally understand. The drive back from the base was silent. My dad sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. His hands rested on his lap, fingers loose, but not relaxed. Every few minutes, he glanced at me, like he wanted to say something, then thought better of it. I kept my eyes on the road. I didn't break the silence. I didn't offer him an easy way into the conversation. If he wanted to talk, he'd have to start. We were almost at his house when he finally spoke. "You should have told me." I didn't respond right away. I let the words hang there, testing their weight. "Told you what?" I asked, my voice even. "About your clearance. About what you actually do." I pulled into his driveway and put the car in park. I turned to face him. "I did. Tell you." He frowned. "When?" 3 years ago, when I got the assignment, I told you I was moving into executive support operations. I told you it required an extensive background check. I told you I'd be working with senior leadership. You said it was administrative work. No, you said it was administrative work. I said I coordinated logistics for senior command staff. You heard what you wanted to hear. He bristled. "That's not fair." "It's accurate." He looked away, jaw tight. "I didn't know it meant that." He gestured vaguely, like he didn't have the words. "The presidential seal. The priority clearance. The VIP lane." "Yankee White," I said. "It's called Yankee White clearance. It's required for anyone working in close proximity to the president, vice president, or their immediate support staff." He blinked. "You work with the president?" "I work in the support structure. I don't brief the president directly, but I coordinate operations for those who do." He stared at me like I was a stranger. "How long?" 2 years in this assignment, but I've held high-level clearances since I was a captain. "And you never thought to mention it?" I felt a flicker of anger. Small. Controlled. "I did mention it. You didn't ask follow-up questions. Because I thought you couldn't talk about it." I couldn't talk about specifics, but I could talk about the structure, the responsibility, the weight of it. You just never asked. He exhaled sharply. Because you made it sound like you didn't want to talk about it. I didn't make it sound like anything. I answered what you asked. You just stopped asking. He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. His shoulders sagged. I didn't know how to ask. Why not? He didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands. Rough hands. Scarred from years of maintenance work. Hands that had built things, fixed things, held things together. Because you became something I didn't understand, he said quietly. There it was. The truth under the deflection. I'm still your daughter, I said. I know. But you're also a major with clearance I've never even heard of. Working in places I'll never see. And I don't know how to talk to you about that. You talk to me the way you always have. You ask questions. You listen. It's not that simple. It is, actually. He shook his head. You don't get it. Then explain it to me. He looked up, and for the first time I saw something raw in his expression. Not anger. Not defensiveness. Something closer to hurt. I spent 22 years earning my rank, he said. Every stripe, every promotion, every evaluation, I worked for it. I bled for it. And I was proud of it. I know. And then you commissioned. And suddenly, overnight, you were an officer. You outranked me before you'd even deployed. It wasn't overnight. I spent 4 years in college and ROTC training. I earned my commission. I know you did, but it wasn't the same. No, it wasn't. But that doesn't make it less valid. He looked away again. I'm not saying it's not valid. Then what are you saying? He was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. I'm saying I didn't know how to be proud of you without feeling like I was being left behind. The words hit harder than I expected. I'd known he struggled with my rank. I'd known he felt some kind of disconnect. But I hadn't realized it went this deep. Dad, I said carefully, my career isn't a competition with yours. I know that. Rationally, I know that. But it doesn't always feel that way. Why not? He rubbed his face. Because I look at you and I see everything I couldn't be. The education, the clearances, the access, the respect that comes with those oak leaves. You had respect. You were a senior master sergeant. That's not a small thing. I know, but it's not the same as an officer. It's different, not less. You don't understand, he said, frustration creeping back into his voice. You don't know what it's like to work your whole career and still be told you're not qualified to make certain decisions. To sit in meetings and be talked over because you're enlisted, not commissioned. I didn't interrupt. I let him talk. I respected officers. I followed orders. I did my job. But there was always a line I couldn't cross. And you crossed it on day one, before you'd even seen a deployment. I understand that feels unfair. It's not about fair. It's about, I don't know, pride and shame. And not knowing how to hold both at the same time. He looked at me and I saw it clearly now. The father who raised me. The senior master sergeant who led airmen for over 2 decades. And the man who couldn't reconcile the two. I am proud of you, he said. I am. But I'm also, I don't know, embarrassed, confused. I look at what you've accomplished and I feel like I should have done more. Been more. You did plenty. It doesn't feel like it. That's not my fault. The words came out harsher than I intended. He flinched. I softened my tone. I'm not trying to be cruel, but I need you to hear me. I can't carry your regret. I can't shrink my accomplishments to make you comfortable. That's not fair to me. He nodded slowly. I know. I need you to see me. Actually see me. Not as a threat to your legacy. Not as a reminder of what you didn't do. But as your daughter who chose to serve, just like you did. I do see you. Do you? Because for the past 10 years you've dismissed my career. You've joked about it. You've minimized it. You've introduced me as just a civilian, even when I'm standing in front of you in uniform. He winced. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but you did. And I need you to understand that. He sat with that, silent, processing. Finally he said, I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was a start. Thank you, I said. We sat there for a while longer, not talking, just existing in the same space. Eventually he opened the car door. I should let you get back. Okay. He paused, 1 foot on the driveway. Sonia. Yeah. I do see you. Maybe not the way I should. But I'm trying. I nodded. That's all I'm asking. He got out of the car. I watched him walk to his front door, slower than I remembered. I didn't pull away until he was inside. The weeks after were quiet. My dad didn't call. I didn't reach out. It wasn't hostility. It was space. The kind of distance that lets things settle before they can be rebuilt. I threw myself into work. My assignment kept me busy. Coordinating schedules, managing logistics for high-level briefings, ensuring every detail was accounted for. The kind of work that required precision and didn't leave much room for distraction, which was fine by me. One afternoon, Lieutenant Colonel Kim stopped by my office. She didn't knock. She never did. "Major," she said, leaning against the door frame, "you've been putting in long hours." I glanced up from my screen. "Just staying on top of things, ma'am." She studied me for a moment, calm, perceptive. The kind of officer who noticed what people didn't say. "Everything all right?" "Yes, ma'am." "You sure?" I hesitated. "Family stuff. Nothing that affects my work." "I didn't say it was affecting your work." She stepped into the office and closed the door behind her. "I'm asking if you're all right." I set down my pen. "I'm fine, ma'am. Just navigating some things." She nodded. "Your father." I shouldn't have been surprised. Kim was sharp. She'd probably picked up on the tension during the retirement ceremony. "Yes, ma'am." "He having a hard time with your rank?" "Something like that." She pulled up a chair and sat down. "My father was enlisted, too. Army E7. When I commissioned, he stopped talking to me for 6 months. I blinked. 6 months. Yep. Wouldn't return my calls. Wouldn't come to my promotion ceremony. Finally, my mom made him sit down with me. Took another 3 months before things felt normal again. What changed? He saw me in action. I was deployed and he came to a unit event. Watched me brief a room full of senior officers. Watched them listen. Afterward, he said, "I didn't know you could do that." "And that fixed it?" "Not immediately, but it started the process." She leaned back. "The thing about enlisted leadership is it's earned through time and experience. You prove yourself step by step. Officer leadership, especially at our level, comes with authority right out of the gate. That's hard for some people to accept. I didn't ask for special treatment. I know, and neither did I, but that doesn't change how they see it." She paused. "Your father's pride isn't about you. It's about him. About what he thinks he should have been able to achieve. I can't fix that for him." "No, you can't, but you can hold your ground. Let him come to terms with it on his own timeline." I nodded. "I'm trying." "Good." She stood. "You're doing solid work, Richard. Don't let anyone, family included, make you doubt that." "Thank you, ma'am." "It's me," she said again, almost an afterthought. "Just calling to check in. Give me a call when you get a chance." I didn't call back right away, not out of spite. I just needed to be in the right headspace first. When I finally did call, it was late, after shift. I was still on base, sitting in my car in the empty parking lot. He picked up on the second ring. "Sonia," he said, "finally. About what you said. About seeing you. Okay. I don't think I have. Not really. I've been seeing who I expected you to be, not who you are." I didn't respond. I let him talk. "I went to a luncheon last week. Veterans group. One of the guys mentioned you. Said his son works on the same base. Said you're the major assigned to the high clearance unit. I didn't know that came up." It did. And everyone was impressed. They asked me questions. What you do. How long you've been in. I realized I didn't know how to answer most of them. "Because you never asked." "Yeah," he said. "I never asked. And that's on me." "It is." "I'm sorry, Sonia. I really am. I've been so focused on what I didn't do, that I couldn't see what you did." I closed my eyes. "I don't need you to be impressed by my rank, Dad. I just need you to acknowledge it." "I will. I am. Actions, not words." "I know." Another silence. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure. What does a major with Yankee White clearance actually do?" I smiled. Small, tired, but real. "I coordinate executive-level operations. I manage logistics for high-level briefings. I ensure the right people are in the right place with the right information at the right time." "That sounds intense." "It is. And you're good at it." "Yeah, I am." "Then I'm proud of you." I believed him this time. "Thank you. Can I see you again? Maybe take you to lunch." "I'd like that." "Good. I'll call you next week. Set something up." "Okay." "Sonia." "Yeah. I'm going to do better. I mean it." I know. We hung up. I sat in the car for a while longer, staring at the empty base around me. It wasn't resolution. Not yet. But it was movement. And sometimes that's enough. 2 months later, my dad asked if he could visit me on base. Not for an event. Not for a ceremony. Just to see where I worked. I was surprised and cautious. You sure? I asked. It's not glamorous. It's mostly offices and secure spaces you won't be able to enter. I know. I still want to see it. Okay. I'll get you cleared. The paperwork took a week. Background check, visitor access request, authorization from my chain of command. When the approval came through, I called him. You're good to go. Meet me at the Visitor Control Center at 1000 hours on Saturday. 1000. Got it. Saturday morning, I arrived early, waited by the entrance, watched him pull into the lot, park, and walk toward me. He was dressed neatly, not a uniform. He hadn't worn one since he retired, but pressed slacks, a collared shirt, his Air Force veteran ball cap. Morning, he said. Morning. I led him through the visitor check-in process. He handed over his ID, signed the paperwork, received a temporary badge. Stay with me at all times, I said. Don't take photos. Don't discuss anything you see or hear outside this facility. Understood. We walked through the main gate, the same one where the scanner had flashed red months earlier. This time, the guards simply checked our badges and waved us through. My dad looked around, taking it in. The buildings, the people in uniform moving with purpose. The quiet hum of a functioning military installation. It's bigger than I expected, he said. Most bases are. I took him to the administrative building where my office was located. Not classified. Nothing sensitive. Just a workspace. He stood in the doorway, looking at my desk. The nameplate. Major Sonia Richard. The plaques on the wall, the commendations, the framed certificates. This is yours? He asked. This is mine. He stepped inside slowly, like he was entering a museum. He read each certificate, each award, each recognition. You got a meritorious service medal. 2, actually. The second one's at home. He looked at me. Your mom and I got one of those for our whole careers combined. I know. He turned back to the wall, quiet, processing. After a moment, I said, come on, I'll show you the rest. We walked through the building. I introduced him to a few colleagues, airmen, NCOs, junior officers. Everyone addressed me the same way. Good morning, ma'am. Yes, Major. Right away, Major. My dad listened, watched, absorbed. At one point, a captain approached. Major Richard, do you have a moment? I need your input on the briefing schedule. Of course. Captain. This is my father, retired Senior Master Sergeant Richard. The captain extended his hand. An honor, Senior. Thank you for your service. My dad shook his hand, clearly surprised. Thank you, sir. We stepped aside to review the schedule. My dad stood nearby, silent, observing. When we finished, the captain nodded. Thanks, ma'am. I'll adjust accordingly. He walked away. My dad looked at me. You just told a captain what to do. I didn't tell him. I advised him. But yes, in this assignment, I coordinate schedules that affect officers at all levels. He shook his head slowly. I didn't know. I know. We continued the tour. I showed him the briefing rooms, the conference spaces, the quiet corridors where decisions got made. By the time we finished, it was past noon. Hungry? I asked. Yeah. We went to the base dining facility. I grabbed a tray. He did the same. As we ate, he said, You carry a lot of weight here. I do. Does it get to you? Sometimes. But I knew what I was signing up for. He nodded. I can see that now. Can you? Yeah. He set down his fork. I see the way people look at you, the way they listen when you talk, the respect you've earned. He paused. I see you, Sonia. I really do. Believed him. After lunch, we walked back to the parking lot. He stopped by his car, turned to me. Thank you for letting me see this. Of course. I mean it. I needed to see it to understand. I know. He hesitated. I want to do better. Be better as a father. Then ask me questions. Show interest. Don't assume. I will. Good. He opened his car door, then stopped. Sonia. Yeah. I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago, but I'm saying it now. Thank you. He got in his car. I watched him drive away, and this time when he left, it didn't feel like an ending. Felt like a beginning. 6 months later, we were back at a base checkpoint. Different base, different assignment, same routine. I was being reassigned to another high-clearance unit. My dad asked if he could drive up with me, help me move in. I said yes. We pulled up to the gate at 1,300 hours. A young airman stepped forward. Fresh-faced. Probably his first duty station. IDs, please. I handed over my credentials. My dad handed over his retired card. The airman scanned mine first. The system beeped. Clearance confirmed. Major, welcome. You're cleared for entry. He looked at my dad. And you, senior? My dad smiled. I'm just here to help with the move. She's the one you need to worry about. The airman grinned. Roger that. Enjoy your day, Major. We drove through. My dad glanced at me. You noticed I didn't call you a civilian this time. I noticed. Progress. Progress. We pulled into the parking lot near my new building. Started unloading boxes. My dad carried the heavy ones without complaint. We worked in comfortable silence. At one point, a colonel walked by, saw me, stopped. Major Richard? Yes, sir. Colonel Adrian Mercer. I'll be your group commander. Welcome to the unit. Thank you, sir. He glanced at my dad. Family helping with the move? Yes, sir. This is my father. Retired Senior Master Sergeant Richard. Mercer extended his hand. Good to meet you, Senior. You raised a hell of an officer. My dad shook his hand, straightening slightly. Thank you, sir. She did that on her own. Mercer smiled. I doubt that. He turned back to me. Settle in. We'll do a proper welcome brief on Monday. Yes, sir. He walked away. My dad watched him go, then looked at me. A colonel just said I raised a hell of an officer. He did. And you agreed with me when I said you did it on your own. Because it's true. He shook his head, smiling. You're something else, Sonia. I'm your daughter. Yeah, you are. We finished unloading. I showed him around my new quarters. Small but functional. Enough space for what I needed. He helped me unpack. We set up my desk, hung my uniform, organized my books. When we finished, he sat on the couch. You're going to do great things here. I plan to. I know you will. He paused. And I want to hear about them. All of it. Whatever you can share. I'll tell you. Good. He stood. I should get on the road. Long drive back. Okay. I walked him to his car. He loaded his bag, then turned to me. I love you, Sonia. I love you too, Dad. And I'm proud of you. I'll keep saying it until you believe me. I believe you. He hugged me, long steady. When he pulled back, there were tears in his eyes. Your mom would be so proud. I know. He got in his car, started the engine. As he pulled away, he rolled down the window. Call me when you get a chance. Tell me about the new assignment. I will. He drove off. I stood there, watching until his car disappeared around the corner. Then I walked back inside. My desk was set. My uniform was hung. My space was ready. I had work to do. And for the first time in years, I felt like my father finally understood that. Not just the rank. Not just the clearance. But the weight, the responsibility, the pride. He understood me. And that was enough. 20 years later, I stood at the edge of Andrews Air Force Base, watching the sun climb over the flight line. The air was crisp, November, early morning, the kind of cold that bites but doesn't quite hurt yet. I was 53 now, Colonel 06. The eagles on my shoulders felt heavier than the oak leaves ever did. Not from physical weight, but from everything they represented. 2 decades had passed since that gate incident. Since my father saw my clearance for the first time. Since everything broke open between us. A lot had changed. My phone buzzed. Text from my daughter. On our way. Dad's driving. Should be there by 0900. I smiled. Typed back. See you soon. My daughter, Captain Elena Richard, 28 years old, 03. Following in footsteps, she'd chosen herself. Not because I pushed her, but because she wanted to serve. She'd commissioned 5 years ago, made captain last year. She was sharp, driven, everything I'd been at her age, but somehow steadier, more certain. She'd learned from watching me, from watching her grandfather, from understanding the complex legacy of military service that ran through our family like a current. Her husband, Marcus, was civilian, a software engineer. Good man, patient, supportive. He understood that her career came with demands most spouses didn't deal with. Deployments, long hours, missed holidays. He handled it with grace. They were driving up together for today's ceremony. My retirement ceremony. The formal end of 32 years of service. I'd made the decision 6 months ago, not because I had to. I could have stayed longer, made general, maybe the stars were within reach if I wanted them. But I didn't. I'd done what I came to do. Led well. Served honorably. Made a difference in the lives of the airmen under my command. And I was tired. The good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a job well done. My father would be here too. He was 79 now, retired for 26 years. His health had been declining slowly. Nothing catastrophic, just the gradual erosion that comes with age. His back hurt more. His hearing wasn't what it used to be. He moved slower. But his mind was still sharp. And he'd been asking about the ceremony for months. "You sure you want me there?" He'd asked the first time I mentioned it. "Of course I want you there. I just don't want to take up space that should go to someone important." "Dad, you're important. You're my father." He'd gone quiet then. "Okay, I'll be there." The years between that gate incident and now hadn't been smooth. We'd stumbled, fought, worked through layers of resentment and misunderstanding that ran deeper than either of us had realized. But we'd done the work, both of us. He'd learned to ask questions, to listen, to celebrate my promotions without making them about his own insecurities. And I'd learned to be patient, to understand that his struggle wasn't personal. It was generational, cultural, the product of a military structure that had defined him for decades. We'd found our way to something real, not perfect but honest. I heard footsteps behind me, turned. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chun, my executive officer, 39 years old. Brilliant. The kind of officer who'd make full colonel within 5 years. "Morning, ma'am," she said. "Morning, Sarah. Final walkthrough. Let's do it." We walked toward the venue. The ceremony would be held in Hangar 3, large enough for the crowd, formal enough for the occasion. Rows of chairs were already set up, a podium at the front, flags arranged precisely. My shadow box was ready, the display case that would hold my medals, my final rank insignia, my retirement flag. Everything was in place. "Looks good," I said. "Your remarks are loaded on the teleprompter. General Hartley will present your retirement certificate. Your daughter will assist with the shadow box presentation." I nodded. "Thank you, Sarah, for everything." She smiled. "It's been an honor, ma'am." We finished the walkthrough. I headed back to my office one last time. The space was mostly empty now. Boxes packed, personal items removed, just the essentials left. I sat at my desk, looked around, thought about all the offices I'd occupied over the years. All the bases, all the assignments, 32 years. For ranks, 8 duty stations, 3 combat deployments, countless briefings, decisions, crises managed. I'd worked my way from second lieutenant to colonel, from pushing papers and learning the basics to commanding units and advising generals. I'd held Yankee White clearance for 12 years, coordinated operations at the highest levels, briefed presidents, managed crises that never made the news. And through it all, I'd carried the lessons my father taught me, even the painful ones. Details matter. Show up, do the work, lead by example. He'd given me that foundation, even when he couldn't see what I'd built on top of it. My phone rang. My father. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, kiddo. We just got to the gate. They're checking our IDs." "Okay. Elena will meet you and bring you to the hangar." "Sounds good. Traffic wasn't too bad." "Good. I'll see you soon." "Sonia." "Yeah. I'm proud of you. I know I've said it 100 times, but I'm saying it again." I smiled. "Thanks, Dad." We hung up. I stood, took one last look around my office, then walked out. The hangar filled quickly. Officers, enlisted personnel, civilians, friends, colleagues from across my career. I stood in the back watching people arrive. Familiar faces, some I hadn't seen in years. Then I saw them. My father, moving slowly but steady, leaning slightly on a cane. Elena at his side in her dress blues, looking sharp. Marcus next to her in a suit. Elena spotted me, waved. They made their way over. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." I hugged her. Then Marcus. Then my father. He looked older than I'd expected. Frielier, but his eyes were bright. "You ready for this?" he asked. "As ready as I'll ever be. It's going to be a good ceremony. You've earned it." "Thanks, Dad." Elena touched my arm. "We should get you to the staging area. General Hartley is almost here." "Okay, you guys find your seats. I'll see you after." They headed toward the front row. Reserved seating. Family. I walked backstage. Sarah was waiting. 5 minutes, ma'am. Got it. The ceremony began precisely at 1000 hours. The color guard presented the flags. The national anthem played. Everyone stood. Then General Hartley took the podium. 2 stars. A career officer I'd worked with years ago. Respected. Fair. She spoke about my service, the assignments, the accomplishments, the impact I'd had on the force. It was surreal hearing my career summarized in 5 minutes. 3 decades reduced to highlights. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium, looked out at the crowd, saw my father in the front row, eyes fixed on me. Elena beside him. Marcus. Friends. Colleagues. I took a breath. 32 years ago, I raised my right hand and swore an oath. I was 23, fresh out of college, nervous, excited, unsure of what I was getting into. I came from a military family. My father served 22 years as a senior master sergeant. He taught me what it meant to serve, to show up, to do the work even when it's hard. He gave me a foundation, but I had to build the structure myself. This career hasn't been easy. It's required sacrifice. Long hours, missed birthdays, deployments to places I couldn't name, doing work I couldn't discuss. But it's also given me purpose, community, the honor of leading some of the finest airmen this country has ever produced. I've made mistakes. I've had failures. I've learned hard lessons about leadership, about humility, about the weight of responsibility. But I've also had the privilege of serving at the highest levels, of coordinating operations that mattered, of making decisions that had real impact. And through it all, I've carried the values my father instilled in me. Integrity, service, excellence. Dad? I looked directly at him, my voice thick with emotion. Thank you for everything you taught me, for the example you set, for learning to see me not just as your daughter, but as an officer. That meant more than you know. His eyes were wet. He nodded. To my daughter, Elena. Watching you commission 5 years ago was one of the proudest moments of my life. Not because you followed my path, but because you chose your own. You're an exceptional officer, and I can't wait to see where your career takes you. To my colleagues, my mentors, the airmen I've had the honor of leading. Thank you. You made me better. You challenged me. You trusted me with responsibility. I hope I've lived up to it. And to everyone here, thank you for your service, for your dedication, for choosing to wear this uniform and uphold the oath we all share. This isn't goodbye. It's a transition. I'm not leaving the military community. I'm just stepping back to make room for the next generation of leaders. Leaders like my daughter, like the junior officers and NCOs in this room who are the future of this force. So, thank you for everything. It's been the honor of my life. I stepped back. The applause was loud. Long General Hartley presented my retirement certificate. Elena came forward to help with the shadow box presentation. She handed it to me, my medals arranged precisely, my eagles mounted at the center, the flag folded sharp. I held it, heavy, final. The ceremony concluded. People filed out. I stood near the exit, shaking hands, receiving congratulations. My father waited until the crowd thinned. Then he approached. That was a good speech, he said. Thanks. You've done something incredible, Sonia. Built something real. I learned from the best. He smiled, said, proud. I don't know about that, but I'm glad I got to see it. Me too. Elena joined us. Ready for lunch? We made reservations. Yeah, let's go. We walked out together. The November sun was higher now, warmer. As we crossed the parking lot, my father stopped, looked back at the hangar. You know, he said, I used to think rank was everything, that the higher you climbed, the more you mattered. And now I think it's about what you did with it. How you led, who you helped, the legacy you leave. That's right. He turned to me. You left a good legacy, Sonia. So did you, Dad. We stood there for a moment. 3 generations. Senior Master Sergeant, Colonel, Captain, all of us connected by service, by the choice to wear the uniform, by the weight of the oath. Come on, Elena said. Let's eat. I'm starving. We got in the car. Marcus drove. Elena navigated. My father sat in the back with me. As we pulled away from the base, I looked out the window, watched the flight line fade into the distance, watched the jets taxi, watched the airmen moving with purpose. I'd been part of that world for 32 years, and now I was leaving it, not with regret, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. I thought about the gate incident 20 years ago, The moment that changed everything between my father and me. At the time, it felt like an ending, like something had broken that couldn't be repaired. But it wasn't an ending. It was a catalyst. It forced us to confront the distance between us, to acknowledge the resentment, to do the hard work of rebuilding. And we had, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. The years after were better, not because the conflict disappeared, but because we learned to navigate it, to talk through it, to meet each other where we were, not where we wished we could be. He came to my promotion ceremonies, asked about my assignments, celebrated my successes without diminishing them. And I learned to appreciate his perspective, to understand that his struggle wasn't about me. It was about his own journey, his own reconciliation with a career that had defined him. We found peace. Not perfection, but peace. And when Elena commissioned, he was there. Front row. Proud. No jokes. No dismissals. Just genuine pride. "You're going to do great things," he told her after the ceremony. "I hope so, Grandpa. I know so. You've got good examples to follow." He looked at me when he said it, and I knew he meant it. The restaurant was busy. We got a table near the window, ordered food, talked, laughed. My father told stories from his time in service. Elena shared updates from her current assignment. Marcus talked about his work. Felt normal, easy, like a family that had found its rhythm. At one point, my father raised his glass. A toast to Colonel Sonia Richard, 32 years of exceptional service. And to the next chapter. We clinked glasses, drank. "What is the next chapter?" Elena asked. "I'm not sure yet," I said. "Maybe teaching, maybe consulting. Maybe just taking some time to figure out who I am without the uniform." "You'll figure it out," my father said. "You always do." "Thanks, Dad." After lunch, we walked outside. The day was clear, beautiful. My father pulled me aside. "Can we talk just for a minute?" "Of course." We walked a little ways from the others, found a bench, sat down. "I've been thinking about something," he said. "What's that?" "That day at the gate 20 years ago. I remember, I was ashamed that day. Not of you, of myself. For not seeing what was right in front of me. I know. But it was the best thing that could have happened, because it woke me up. Made me realize I was losing you. Not because you were drifting away, but because I was refusing to see you. We both made mistakes, Dad. Maybe, but I made more." He looked at me. "I want you to know, these past 20 years, watching you rise, watching you lead, watching you become the officer you are, it's been the greatest privilege of my life." My throat tightened. "Dad, let me finish." He took a breath. "I don't have a lot of time left. I know that. My body is slowing down. And I need you to know before it's too late that I'm proud of you. Not because of your rank. Not because of your clearance. But because of who you are. The integrity. The strength. The kindness." Tears stung my eyes. "Thank you. You're the best thing I ever did. You and the example I set that made you want to serve. That's my legacy, and I'm grateful for it." I hugged him. Long tight. When we pulled apart, his eyes were wet too. "Come on," he said. "Let's get back before they think we got lost." We walked back to Elena and Marcus. My father looked tired, but content. "You okay, Grandpa?" Elena asked. "Yeah, kiddo. Just soaking it all in." We said our goodbyes. My father hugged me one more time. "Call me later. Let me know you got home safe." "I will." They drove off. I stood in the parking lot, watching the car disappear. Elena came up beside me. "You okay, Mom?" "Yeah. Just processing. It was a good ceremony." "It was. And Grandpa seemed really happy." "He was." She paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you regret it? Any of it?" I thought about that. The deployments. The missed moments. The sacrifices. "No," I said. "I don't regret it. It was hard. But it was worth it." "Good. Because I don't want to regret it either." I looked at her. 28. Captain. My daughter following her own path. "You won't," I said. "As long as you stay true to yourself. As long as you lead with integrity. As long as you remember why you started." "I will. I know you will." We stood there for a moment. Mother and daughter. Colonel and captain. 2 generations of service. 2 paths connected by the same oath. "Come on," I said. "Let's go home." We got in the car, drove away from the base, away from the ceremony, away from the uniform. And as we drove, I thought about the gate, the scanner, the moment my father saw the presidential seal. That moment had defined so much. But it hadn't defined everything. What came after mattered more. The work we did to rebuild. The understanding we reached. The peace we found. That was the real story. Not the conflict, but the resolution. Not the betrayal, but the healing. And now, 20 years later, as I closed this chapter of my life, I realized something. The gate wasn't the moment everything changed. It was just the moment everything became visible. The change had been happening all along, in every promotion, every assignment, every choice I made to show up and do the work. The gate just forced us to acknowledge it. And acknowledging it, painful as it was, had set us both free. My father, free to see me as I truly was. Me, free to stop waiting for his permission to be proud of myself. That was the gift. That was the legacy. Not the rank. Not the clearance. Not the ceremony. But the understanding that respect isn't given. It's recognized. And I'd earned it long before that scanner flashed red. I'd earned it through service. Through leadership. Through the quiet, steady accumulation of excellence. And now, 32 years later, I could finally rest in that knowledge. I was Colonel Sonia Richard, and I'd served well. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. So that's how everything shifted. Not with a fight, but with clarity. I stopped shrinking myself. And he finally had to see who I'd become. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to someone who kept you in a version of yourself you'd outgrown? Did they change? Or did you have to walk away? Drop your experience in the comments. Someone else might need to hear it. And if you want more true stories about boundaries, respect, and owning your worth, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one.